The package sat on my desk like a landmine waiting to detonate. No return address. Just my name in precise block letters, the kind someone uses when they don't want their handwriting recognized. Scarlett, the quarterly reports are due tomorrow. Oliver called from his office doorway. Everything on track? I nodded, not trusting my voice. The manila envelope seemed to pulse with dark energy. I'd been staring at it for 20 minutes, fingers hovering over the metal clasp, stomach churning. You look like you've seen a ghost, Oliver said, stepping into my office. Everything all right? Fine. I slipped the package into my drawer. Just need coffee. Reports will be done by 5. The moment Oliver left, I locked my door and retrieved the envelope. My hands trembled as I worked the clasp open. Inside was a single photograph, glossy and new. The image hit me like a physical blow. Miles, my husband of 8 years, sat on a park bench with his arm around a woman I'd never seen. She was beautiful in that effortless way that makes other women hate themselves a little. But it wasn't her perfectly styled hair or designer sundress that made my blood run cold. It was the baby in her arms, a baby with Miles's distinctive green eyes and cleft chin. My phone buzzed. A text from Miles? Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I stared at his message until the words blurred. How many other nights had he been working late while building his secret family? The lies stretched back through our marriage like poison ivy, choking everything they touched. The photo slipped from my fingers, landing face up on my desk. The happy little family smiled up at me, mocking every fertility treatment, every negative pregnancy test, every time Miles had held me while I cried about our inability to conceive. It's not meant to be, he'd say. We're enough for each other. My phone buzzed again. Jenna this time. Dress shopping tomorrow. Can't wait to see you, sis. My sister's excitement felt like acid in my chest. Her engagement party was this weekend. She'd asked Miles to give a toast. The thought of him standing there, playing the role of devoted husband while his mistress and child waited somewhere in the wings, made me physically ill. I grabbed my trash can just in time. When I could breathe again, I studied the photo more carefully. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken 3 days ago. The location tag read Riverside Park. They weren't even trying to hide. Scarlett? Oliver's voice accompanied another knock. Conference call in 5. Coming? I tucked the photo into my purse and straightened my blazer. The woman in my office mirror looked exactly the same as she had this morning. How strange that catastrophe leaves no visible marks. The conference call dragged on for an hour. I contributed when necessary, my professional mask firmly in place while my mind raced through years of subtle clues I'd missed or dismissed. The separate bank account for investment purposes. The mysterious work trips that never quite aligned with his company's calendar. The way he'd stopped talking about our future children. When 5 o'clock arrived, I sent Miles a text. Hope work isn't too stressful. Love you. His response came quickly. Miss you. See you tonight. I gathered my things, said goodbye to Oliver, and walked to my car with steady steps. Inside, I pulled out the photo again. The anonymous sender had given me a gift, really. The truth, however ugly, was better than living a lie. I started my car and pointed it toward Riverside Park. It was time to see if Miles's little family kept to a regular schedule. You have to try this one. Jenna twirled in a cloud of white tulle, her face glowing. The beating is exactly what I wanted. I forced a smile, though my jaw ached from maintaining this facade. The bridal boutique's lights felt too bright, the champagne too warm, the moment too false. The photograph in my purse might as well have been radioactive. It's beautiful, I managed, but maybe something less princess-like? You've got 4 more to try. Diane cleared her throat from her perch on the velvet settee. Speaking of princesses, Scarlett, when are you and Miles planning to give me a grandchild? The clock is ticking. My champagne flute trembled. I set it down before anyone could notice. We're focusing on careers right now. Nonsense. Diane waved her hand dismissively. Miles makes more than enough, and you're not getting any younger. Jenna shot me an apologetic look as she disappeared behind the curtain to change. I could hear her humming. She always hummed when she was happy. Actually, I said, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling beneath, Miles and I had some tests done, fertility issues. The lie tasted bitter, but not as bitter as the truth. Oh. Diane's face softened with practiced sympathy. Well, there are treatments. My phone buzzed. A text from Miles. Missing you? Dinner tonight? Another buzz? An unknown number. Thought you should see this too. Attached was a photo of Miles leaving a jewelry store last week, carrying a distinctive blue box, the same day he'd told me he was in Chicago for work. Scarlett? Jenna emerged in a sleek silk gown. You look pale. Are you okay? Just hungry. I stood up, gathering my purse. I need some air. Maybe grab a sandwich. But we have 3 more dresses. I'll be quick. I was already moving toward the door. That one's perfect anyway. You should get it. Outside, I leaned against the building's cool stone facade. The jewelry store was only 2 blocks away. My feet carried me there before I could think better of it. The saleswoman smiled as I entered. Welcome to Tiffany's. How can I help you today? I was wondering about a purchase my husband made last week. I pulled up the photo on my phone. This would have been Thursday around 2. Her smile brightened with recognition. Oh yes, Mr. Harrison. Such a lovely choice for his wife's birthday. The sapphire pendant was exquisite. My birthday was in December. It was April. Thank you. I turned to leave, then paused. Did he happen to mention his wife's name? Clara, I believe. He was very specific about the engraving. The bell above the door chimed as another customer entered. I barely registered Diane's voice calling my name as I pushed past her. Scarlett, what are you doing here? She grabbed my arm. Jenna's in tears thinking she upset you. I yanked free. Did you know? Know what? About Clara. The name felt like glass in my mouth. About your grandchild. Diane's face went blank. What grandchild? Scarlett, you're not making sense. The one Miles had with his mistress. I pulled out the first photograph. The one he's been hiding while telling me we can't have children. That grandchild. She stared at the photo, her perfectly manicured hand flying to her throat. There must be some mistake. Miles would never... He did. He does. And he just bought his other family a sapphire pendant while telling me he was in Chicago. Diane's face hardened. We should discuss this privately. Not here, not now. Jenna's wedding. Right. I laughed. The sound sharp enough to make a passing couple stare. Heaven forbid we disturb the perfect family image. I'll just keep pretending while your son builds his other family on the side. Scarlett, tell Jenna I'm sorry. I'll call her later. I started walking, not caring where. Oh, and Diane, congratulations on your grandchild. I hear he has Miles's eyes. Behind me, I heard the boutique's door open again, Jenna's voice calling out. But I kept walking, each step taking me further from the life I thought I had, closer to the revenge I now craved. Miles's car idled outside the Victorian townhouse, its blue paint gleaming in the streetlights. I killed my headlights and watched him climb the steps, carrying takeout bags and what looked like a stuffed animal. The perfect husband, just at the wrong address. My phone lit up. Jenna again. 12 missed calls since I'd left the bridal shop. I switched it off. The townhouse's warm light spilled onto the sidewalk, creating shadow plays through gauzy curtains. A woman's silhouette, Clara, appeared, taking the bags. Then Miles lifted something from her arms. The baby. His son. I grabbed my camera, zooming in as Miles cradled the child. The tenderness in his expression made my stomach turn. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never seen him look at anything that way. A text notification broke my concentration. Following your husband too? We should talk. See. I scanned the street but saw no one. Another message appeared. Coffee shop across the street. I'm in the back booth. The cafe was nearly empty. A woman in a charcoal blazer sat alone, her red hair swept into a sleek ponytail. She looked up as I approached, gesturing to the seat across from her. Catherine Morris, she said. I'm Miles's financial advisor. She slid a folder across the table. Or rather I was, until I noticed some irregularities. I opened the folder. Bank statements, property records, insurance policies. Why are you showing me this? Because your husband's been embezzling from his company to support his other family. Catherine's smile was sharp. And I have proof he's been doing it through accounts in your name. The room tilted slightly. That's impossible, Of course you didn't, but your signature's on everything. She tapped the documents. Excellent forgeries. The FBI would be very interested. You sent the photographs? Miles cost me my job when I confronted him. She sipped her coffee. Consider this professional courtesy. Through the window, I could see Miles leaving the townhouse. He checked his watch, probably thinking up tonight's excuse. Why didn't you go to the authorities? Same reason you haven't confronted him yet. Catherine gathered her things. Sometimes revenge is better served slowly. After she left, I studied the documents. Joint accounts I'd never seen. Investment properties purchased in my name. A trust fund for his son, all funded with stolen money, all tied to me. My phone buzzed again when I turned it back on. Miles. Home soon. Made reservations at Giovanni's. Wear that black dress I love. I thought of all the nights I'd worn that dress, thinking he was looking at me the way he'd just looked at his son. All the times I'd believed his lies about working late, about our future, about us. The cafe door chimed. I looked up to see Clara entering, a baby carrier in one hand. She ordered, then scanned for a seat. Our eyes met. For a moment, we just stared at each other. The wife and the mistress, both pawns in Miles's game. Then something shifted in her expression. Recognition. She walked over slowly, realization dawning on her face. You're her, aren't you? The business partner he mentioned? Business partner? The laugh that escaped me sounded foreign. Is that what he calls me? Clara sank into Catherine's vacant seat, her face draining of color. He said he was divorced, that his ex-wife was trying to ruin him financially. We're not divorced. I slid the photograph across the table. Someone sent me this yesterday. She stared at it, then at me. The baby stirred in his carrier, making soft noises. Miles's son. I'm going to be sick, Clara whispered. Join the club. I pushed the folder toward her. But first, you should see what else your boyfriend's been up to. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, casting shadows across documents that would destroy the man we'd both loved. The man who'd played us both for fools. My phone lit up one final time. Miles. Almost home. Can't wait to see you. I looked at Clara, at the evidence between us, at the baby who shared his father's eyes. What do you say we give him a surprise instead? Jenna's engagement party hummed with fake laughter and expensive champagne. I stood in the corner of our grandparents' garden, watching Miles charm the crowd. He'd always been good at that, making people believe whatever version of himself he wanted them to see. You've been avoiding my calls. Jenna appeared beside me, radiant in her cream cocktail dress. What happened at the boutique? Nothing. I drained my champagne. Just feeling under the weather. Liar. She linked her arm through mine. You're doing that thing with your jaw, like when we were kids and you were keeping secrets to protect me. Across the garden, Miles caught my eye and raised his glass. Next to him, Diane was showing off photos on her phone, probably pictures of her secret grandson. Some things are better left unsaid, I managed, especially during your engagement party. Scarlet. Jenna's grip tightened. You're scaring me. Before I could respond, Oliver approached with 2 fresh glasses. Mind if I borrow the bride's sister for a moment? Jenna hesitated, then kissed my cheek. This conversation isn't over. Oliver waited until she was out of earshot. I received some concerning information about Miles's accounts at work. My hand froze mid-sip. What kind of information? The kind that could land him, and potentially you, in federal prison. He lowered his voice. Someone's been systematically moving company funds through shell corporations. Your signature's all over the paperwork. I never signed anything. I know. Oliver's eyes were kind but serious. That's why I came to you first. The board meets Monday to discuss pressing charges. The party's chatter became white noise. Through the crowd, I watched Miles lift someone's baby, cooing and playing the devoted uncle. The sight made me physically ill. How long have you known? I asked. About the money? 3 days? About Clara? Oliver sighed. I saw them last month at that new French place downtown. Didn't know how to tell you. My grandmother's prized roses blurred as tears threatened. I blinked them back. I need air. I slipped through the French doors into the quiet of the house. Family photos lined the hallway. Jenna and me as children, our grandparents at their 50th anniversary, Miles and me on our wedding day. All lies in gilded frames. There you are. Miles's voice behind me. I've barely seen you all evening. I didn't turn around. Busy night. His hands settled on my shoulders, familiar and foreign at once. You seem tense. Everything okay? How's your son? His hands stilled. The grandfather clock in the foyer ticked 7 endless seconds before he spoke. What are you talking about? I shrugged off his touch and faced him. The baby in the photo, the one with your eyes, the one you've been supporting with stolen money in my name. Color drained from his face. Scarlet, don't. I held up my hand. The FBI is investigating the embezzlement. Oliver knows everything. I can explain. Can you explain the forgeries, the shell corporations? How about explaining to Clara that she's not your only wife? His expression shifted from shock to calculation. I recognized it now. The mask adjusting, the lies assembling. Whatever you think you know, he started. I know enough. Through the window, I could see Jenna searching the crowd for me. You have until Monday to confess everything to the board. After that, I'm turning over all the evidence. You'd really send me to prison? You were willing to send me there to protect your lies. I smiled, cold and sharp. Funny how karma works. The door opened. Jenna poked her head in. There you are. Come on, it's time for the toast. Miles reached for my arm. I stepped back. Coming, sis. Miles was just telling me how excited he is to give his speech. Outside, guests gathered around the makeshift stage. Diane beamed as Miles took the microphone, ever the proud mother. I watched my sister's face glow with happiness, knowing this might be her last moment of believing in perfect families and happy endings. My phone vibrated. A text from Clara. Ready when you are. I looked at Miles, raising his glass to love and loyalty, and typed back 2 words. Tomorrow morning. The morning after the engagement party, I found Miles in his home office, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. He didn't look up when I entered. Rough night? I leaned against the doorframe. Or just busy covering your tracks. His fingers paused over the keyboard. I was going to tell you. Before or after I went to prison for your crimes? It's complicated. He rubbed his face, finally meeting my eyes. The money, it started small. Just enough to help Clara with the baby. Then things spiraled. Like your lies? A notification pinged on his computer. I glimpsed Clara's name in the email subject line before he minimized it. I loved you, he said. I still do. Enough to forge my signature? To steal my future along with the company's money? He stood, reaching for me. Let me fix this. I'll confess everything to the board, take full responsibility. The way you took responsibility for your son. The words tasted like acid. Or the way you took responsibility for our fertility issues. His phone buzzed. Clara's face flashed on the screen before he silenced it. She's waiting for you, isn't she? I moved closer, picking up a framed photo from his desk, us on our honeymoon. Does she know you're married? That you've been lying to both of us? Scarlett, please. I talked to Catherine Morris. The color drained from his face. What did she tell you? Everything. I set the frame down carefully, including where the rest of the money went, the offshore accounts, the property in the Caymans. His expression hardened. Catherine's bitter about being fired. She'll say anything. To protect herself from prosecution, I pulled out my phone, showing him the recording app. The way you tried to protect yourself by making me your fall guy? You're recording this? Insurance. I stopped the recording. In case you try to pin everything on me when the FBI comes knocking. His laugh was ugly. You wouldn't dare. Think about Jenna's wedding, your reputation, our families. Our families! The vase of fresh flowers on his desk caught my eye, identical to the ones I'd seen at Clara's townhouse. You mean like the family you built on the side? Or the one you've been lying to for years? The front door chimed. Miles went rigid. Expecting someone? I asked sweetly. Clara's voice carried up the stairs. Miles, are you home? His eyes widened in panic. Scarlett, wait. I brushed past him, heading for the stairs. Behind me, papers scattered as Miles scrambled to follow. Clara stood in our foyer, holding their son. She froze when she saw me. Perfect timing, I said. We were just discussing Miles's creative accounting. What's going on? Clara's eyes darted between us. Miles? Remember those documents I showed you? I descended the stairs slowly. About the money he's been stealing? Scarlett, stop! Miles grabbed my arm. I yanked free. Tell her, Miles. Tell her about your wife while you're explaining where all that money really went. Clara's face crumpled. Wife? 8 years next month? I held up my left hand, wedding ring glinting. Though I suppose that's about to change. The baby started crying. The sound echoed off the high ceilings, mixing with Clara's shocked inhale and Miles's desperate attempts at damage control. I can explain everything, he started. Save it for the FBI. I reached the bottom step. They'll be here soon enough. Clara backed toward the door, clutching her son. You're married? All this time? Clara, please. Miles moved to follow her. Don't. My voice could have frozen hell. Let her go. You've done enough damage. The door slammed behind Clara. Through the window, I watched her hurry to her car, tears streaming down her face. Miles slumped against the wall. You've ruined everything. No. I headed for the door myself. You did that all on your own. Where are you going? I paused, hand on the doorknob. To tell my sister the truth, then to the FBI. I looked back at him, this stranger I'd loved for 8 years. I suggest you call a lawyer. The door closed behind me with a final click. In my purse, my phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. Board meeting moved up. Tomorrow morning. I smiled as I typed my response. Perfect. The boardroom felt like a tomb. 12 pairs of eyes watched me take my seat, their expressions ranging from pity to suspicion. Miles sat opposite me, flanked by 2 lawyers I'd never seen before. Oliver cleared his throat. Before we begin, Mrs. Harrison, are you sure you don't want legal representation? I have everything I need. I placed my folder on the polished table. Miles's lawyer spoke first. My client wishes to make a statement. Actually, I cut in. I'd like to go first. The door opened. Diane swept in, her designer suit immaculate, her smile razor sharp. I hope I'm not interrupting. My stomach dropped. Miles straightened, confidence returning to his posture. Mother, this is a closed meeting. Oh, but I'm here as a major shareholder. She took a seat next to Miles, and as someone with relevant information about these accusations. I opened my folder, hands steady despite the cold sweat breaking out along my spine. I have documentation of every fraudulent transaction. You mean the transactions you authorized? Diane slid a stack of papers across the table. We found these in your home office last night. The board members murmured as they examined the documents. My signature, perfect forgeries, on everything from wire transfers to offshore account applications. That's not my signature. Our handwriting expert disagrees. Miles's lawyer smiled, as does the notary who witnessed several of these signatures. My phone vibrated. A text from Clara. He threatened to take my son. I'm sorry. The room tilted slightly. Of course, Miles must have gotten to her, used their child as leverage. If you'll look at the evidence I've prepared, I started. The evidence you fabricated to frame my son? Diane's voice could have frozen flame. After embezzling company funds to support your gambling addiction? Gambling addiction? I looked at Oliver, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. That's ridiculous. We have casino receipts. Miles spoke softly, regretfully. And witnesses who'll testify about your problems. The board members exchanged glances. I recognized the shift in the room, the moment they decided I was the villain in this story. Oliver, I pleaded, you know this isn't true. I know you've been under tremendous pressure. His words were careful, rehearsed. The fertility treatments, the marriage counseling. Marriage counseling? Another piece clicked into place. The therapist Miles had insisted on last year. More witnesses for his manufactured narrative. Scarlett, Miles reached across the table. Please, let us help you. I jerked away from his touch. Don't. The company won't press charges, his lawyer offered. provided you agree to treatment and sign over your shares to Mrs. Harrison Sr. The trap snapped shut. They'd planned this perfectly, using my own revenge plot against me. Every piece of evidence I'd gathered had a counter-narrative that painted me as unstable, desperate, dangerous. And if I refuse, then we'll have no choice but to involve the authorities. Diane's smile never wavered. Think of your sister's wedding. The scandal would be unfortunate. My phone buzzed again. Jenna, why is Miles's mom telling everyone you're having a breakdown? The walls closed in. Every path forward led to destruction, mine or others I loved. Miles had outplayed me, using my own protective instincts as weapons. I need air. I stood, papers scattering. 5 minutes. Nobody stopped me as I fled the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, gasping. My phone kept buzzing. Jenna, Clara, unknown numbers probably belonging to reporters Miles had already primed with his version of events. The emergency exit beckoned. I could run, start over somewhere new. But that would mean leaving Jenna vulnerable, abandoning Clara to Miles's manipulation, proving every lie they'd told about me. The boardroom door opened. Oliver stepped out. They're ready for your decision. I straightened, smoothing my jacket. 8 years of marriage had taught me everything about Miles, including how to lie convincingly. Actually, I said, I have one more piece of evidence to present. I pulled out my phone, fingers hovering over Catherine Morris's number. Miles wasn't the only one who could plan ahead. Sometimes revenge required losing everything to win. Shall we? I gestured to the door, my smile as sharp as Diane's. Time to show them how dangerous a cornered woman could be. I placed my phone on the boardroom table. Speaker mode activated. Catherine, you're on with the board of directors. Miles's smirk faltered. Diane's hand tightened on her son's shoulder. Ms. Morris, Oliver leaned forward. You were terminated for making unfounded accusations. Actually, Catherine's voice filled the room. I was fired for discovering something interesting about the Harrison Family Trust. The door opened. Clara walked in, holding her son. Behind her, 2 FBI agents followed. What is this? Diane stood, but one agent gestured for her to remain seated. The trust fund was clever, I said, watching Miles' face drain of color. Setting it up in your mother's name, using it to launder company money. Did you really think I wouldn't find the connection? You have no proof, Miles started. But I do. Clara stepped forward. Everything's in the nursery camera footage, including Miles's confession about the embezzlement, the fake signatures, all of it. Miles lunged for his phone. The second FBI agent intercepted him. The nanny cam? Miles whispered. You recorded every visit. Clara's voice shook. Every lie you told about being single, about the money being yours, about Scarlett being your unstable business partner who was trying to steal from the company. Diane's perfectly maintained facade cracked. You stupid boy. What have you done? What you taught him to do. I opened another folder. Protect the family name at any cost, even if it meant destroying others. The board members murmured as copies of bank statements circulated. The real ones this time, showing the complex web of transactions between the company, the trust, and Miles' secret accounts. Mrs. Harrison Sr., one FBI agent stepped forward. We have some questions about your role in these transactions. Diane's face hardened. I want my lawyer. Of course. The agent smiled. We can discuss the offshore accounts at the federal building. Miles stood, desperation rolling off him in waves. Scarlett, please, think about what this will do to everyone, to Jenna's wedding. Don't you dare use my sister. I kept my voice level. You did this, all of it. The lies, the theft, the manipulation, and now you'll face the consequences. The gambling addiction story was particularly creative, Catherine added through the speaker, using Scarlett's fertility clinic visits to create a paper trail of destructive behavior. Almost brilliant, if it hadn't been so easy to disprove. Clara shifted her son to her other hip. I trusted you. We both did. Clara, sweetheart. Miles reached for his child. The baby started crying. The sound cut through the tension like a knife, making everything suddenly brutally real. Mr. Harrison, the first agent stepped between Miles and Clara. You'll need to come with us. You can't do this. Miles looked around wildly. Mother, tell them. But Diane was already being let out, her lawyer on speed dial. The board chairman cleared his throat. Ms. Morris, would you consider returning to your position? We'll need someone to audit the full extent of the damage. Gladly. Catherine's satisfaction was audible. I'll be in tomorrow morning. I gathered my things as the agents read Miles his rights. Clara caught my arm before I could leave. I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner. She bounced her fussing son. When he threatened custody, you protected your child. I touched the baby's soft cheek. That's what matters now. Miles called out as they led him past. Scarlett, wait. Goodbye, Miles. I didn't turn around. Give my regards to your mother. You'll probably be sharing a lawyer. Outside, reporters had already gathered. Oliver appeared at my side. The company will release a statement supporting you fully. He handed me a business card. This is my personal attorney. Use her for the divorce. My phone buzzed. Jenna, just saw the news. Coming over now. Love you. I stepped into the sunlight, cameras flashing. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe freely. Sometimes revenge wasn't about destroying someone else. It was about refusing to let them destroy you. Clara followed, shielding her son from the cameras. We shared a look of understanding. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But today, truth had won. And that was enough. The courthouse steps gleamed in the morning sun as I signed the final divorce papers. My lawyer tucked them into her briefcase while I watched Miles being led to a waiting prison transport vehicle, his designer suit replaced by orange coveralls. 5 years, Catherine said, appearing beside me, plus full restitution. Diane got 3. I handed her an envelope. The board approved your reinstatement bonus. Keep it, she smiled. Watching the Harrisons fall was payment enough. Across the plaza, Clara waited with her son. The baby wore a blue romper I'd bought him last week. Some might call it strange, forming a friendship with your ex-husband's mistress. But shared wounds create unexpected bonds. Ready? Jenna linked her arm through mine. Her engagement ring caught the light. A simple band now. The original Harrison family diamond returned along with other ill-gotten gifts. Almost. I approached Clara and the baby. Meeting the realtor at 11? She nodded. The townhouse showing. You're still sure about this? The investment is solid. I touched the baby's cheek. And everyone deserves a fresh start. My phone buzzed. Oliver, probably with more questions about the company restructuring. I'd answer later. Some moments deserved undivided attention. You never told me, Clara said quietly. Who sent that first photograph? I watched Miles disappear into the transport van. Does it matter? I suppose not. She adjusted the baby's hat. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Jenna called from her car. We'll be late for the dress fitting. The wedding was smaller now, reimagined without the Harrison fortune. Better that way. Built on truth rather than carefully constructed lies. You know, Clara said, he asked about you, during the sentencing. And? He said he was sorry, that he never meant to get caught? I touched the spot where my wedding ring used to sit. Some apologies come too late. The baby reached for me, his father's green eyes bright with innocent trust. I lifted him, breathing in that sweet powder smell. In another life, he might have been my stepson. In this one, he was something more complicated, a reminder that love and betrayal often wear the same face. The trust fund is set up, I told Clara. Catherine will manage it until he's 18. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. I handed the baby back. Not for Miles. For him. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for the truth. D. I deleted it without responding. Diane's attempts at redemption from prison held no interest for me. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Scarlett! Jenna honked her horn. The seamstress is waiting. I hugged Clara goodbye, breathing in the future rather than the past. The plaza was filling with people, lawyers, clients, other lives in transition. None of them knew they were standing on the exact spot where I'd received that first photograph, the moment that shattered my world and set me free. Coming, sis. I joined Jenna in her car, leaving Miles in his transport van behind. Through the rearview mirror, I watched Clara heading toward the realtor's office, toward her fresh start. You know what Grandma used to say? Jenna pulled into traffic. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. I thought of Miles in his prison cell, of Diane's empty mansion, of the life I'd almost settled for. Grandma was wrong. Oh, the best revenge is living truthfully. I closed my eyes, feeling the sun on my face. Everything else is just karma. Jenna laughed, the sound pure and free of shadows. Ahead, the city stretched out like a blank page, waiting to be written. Behind us, the courthouse shrank in the mirror, taking with it 8 years of lies and one spectacular act of revenge. My phone buzzed one last time. Catherine, board meeting tomorrow. Ready to take over as CEO? I smiled, thinking of Miles's face when the vote results would reach his cell. Some revenge plots take years to unfold. The best ones never really end. Ready, I typed back, and meant it.